Awaken your shadow. The truth sets some people free. It offends everyone else. By Seth, the Red Neo, Cherupak.
Part 3. Awakening Your Divine Ruler.
New header: Awakening Your Divine Ruler. Your divine ruler is the purest expression of your sovereign self. It is the sacred center that governs your life with clarity, precision, and truth. Your divine ruler embodies quiet authority, not domination, arrogance, or cold control, but coherent authorship. It governs not to validate itself, but to align itself. Its beliefs, words, and actions move as one. It radiates power through presence and through purpose. The divine ruler governs in stillness. Its authority is not proven by applause or status, but by mastery of the contracts of incarnation, especially the contract of time. This covenant says, I will treat time as a sacred trust. I will neither waste it in passivity nor fracture it through control. I will author each hour in alignment with the eternal, knowing that my stewardship of time is the architecture of my kingdom. Before this dimension of your being can emerge, something must be exiled, not Belphegor as a mythic caricature, but Belphegor as an energetic distortion, the seduction of sovereignty into sloth, of stewardship into surrender. Belphegor whispers comfort while stealing conviction. He offers convenience in place of coherence. He trades divine rhythm for mechanical urgency. He hijacks creativity by luring it into numbness and distraction. He enters through fragmentation, not as bodily laziness, but as spiritual erosion. The slothful self, the exiled shadow of your sovereign self, is not inherently wicked. It is disoriented. It was formed in a world that worships urgency and punishes rest. The slothful self learned to freeze under pressure or to mask its spiritual disconnection by staying busy. It chases productivity to feel worthy or collapses beneath unclaimed purpose. Belphegor hands it a mask, a false sense of safety that soothes but never strengthens. This is why the shadow work ritual we're about to unpack is not about grinding harder. It is about restoring alignment. The divine ruler rises through the principle of causation, the truth that all creation begins in the unseen. Material events are the echoes, not the origins. When you mistake effect for cause, you hand your crown to circumstances. But when you return to authorship in the spiritual field, tending to belief, vibration, and intention, you reclaim your throne. When fragmented, the masculine and feminine polarities of the sovereign self distort into tyranny and appeasement. The dark feminine collapses into convenience and resentment. She withholds, avoids, or seduces through passive dependence. The dark masculine controls through urgency. He dominates, disciplines, or performs for power. Together they simulate motion without meaning. They create the illusion of progress while severing the root of purpose. When integrated, these same polarities construct the architecture of sovereign power. The divine feminine becomes the sacred keeper of rhythm, attuned to time as a living cycle, not a ticking trap. She listens, waits, and births decision from embodied wisdom. The divine masculine becomes the vessel of authorship, grounding the moment with direction, structure, and protective clarity. Together, these polarities treat time as a sacred covenant. They don't track hours and tasks. They use the clock only as a compass, not a cage for consciousness. They move from obeying deadlines to devoting themselves to their values. They lead through alignment and management of the ebb and flow between masculine and feminine energy. Ask any visionary, artist, or sacred architect. The most transcendent works are birthed not from hustle, but from coherence. Alignment precedes momentum. They move not by force, but from fidelity to what must become real. This is what it means to govern time, not as a servant to schedules, but as a sovereign steward of sacred becoming. The sovereign self measures a day not by tasks completed, but by whether what truly mattered was authored, honored, and embodied. This is not irresponsibility. It is responsibility elevated, a life led from inner decree rather than outer demand. This is the purpose of the ritual ahead, to transmute the slothful self into the divine ruler. Each step is a return to sovereignty, to stewardship, to sacred causation. Here, presence replaces performance. Here, authority replaces urgency. This is how the sovereign self is crowned, in stillness, not speed, through coherence, not control, through consecrated authorship, not frantic motion. This is the foundation of sacred sovereignty, embodied authority, and devotional authorship. We embody this sovereignty through a 7-step ritual drawn from ancient initiations and confirmed by modern science. New subheader, Ritual of the Divine Ruler. Your divine ruler creates sovereignty and inner order by aligning your choices, your calendar, and your nervous system with the principle of causation. This principle expresses itself through the way you steward your time, make your decisions, and respond to the pressures of the matrix. When life feels chaotic, your divine ruler doesn't scramble to fix every visible problem. It returns to the unseen plane of cause, belief, alignment, and decree, and restores order there first. When life feels stagnant or numb, it doesn't drown you in more noise and urgency. It calls you back to the present moment, the only throne from which true causation can be wielded. As you master this inner authorship, your outer life begins to move in step with your true design, instead of the demands of other people or the expectations of the system. This is how your divine ruler restores sovereignty and meaningful productivity, not by hustling harder or doing more, but by reclaiming authorship over your time and energy. This is how you stay rooted and clear while others ping-pong between burnout and apathy, between overcommitment and collapse. Most people live in direct polarity to this divine law. When demands increase, they react instead of rule, saying yes to everything, drowning themselves in tasks, and equating worth with busyness. When exhaustion hits, they swing to the other extreme, checking out, scrolling, numbing, and telling themselves they'll start fresh later. When time feels scarce, they try to squeeze more into the day instead of questioning the beliefs that made their days feel scarce in the first place. This pattern, sloth dressed up as productivity and passivity dressed up as peace, quietly chains people to lives of resentment, regret, and spiritual fatigue. When opportunities arise to create, to lead, or to change direction, most people either procrastinate until the moment passes or rush in without alignment, fueled by anxiety and external pressure. They treat the visible action as the cause and their own inner field as an afterthought. When Belphegor whispers through culture, he tells you that you have only 2 options: work yourself into dust or surrender your will to comfort. Both are forms of sloth. Both keep you from the true plane of causation. We call these by different names, but they're both manifestations of the sin of sloth. One compels you to surrender your time to the matrix, letting schedules, systems, and other people's emergencies dictate your life. The other compels you to drift, avoiding decisions, numbing your discontent, and pretending you're going with the flow while your soul shrivels. Both reinforce the beliefs, identities, and habits that created them in the first place. They fracture the contract of time. This cycle only ends when you refuse the matrix's script that says your time belongs to your boss, your government, your family patterns, or your trauma. Your divine ruler does this not by fighting every circumstance, but by reclaiming the throne of causation, aligning you internally with divine law and the true order of cause and effect. This is not a sudden burst of motivation or a productivity hack. It is the natural result of practicing a ritual that involves 7 sacred steps. Step 1, fasting. Step 2, fixation. Step 3, breath work. Step 4, prayer. Step 5, vision craft. Step 6, sound healing. Step 7, integration. This is how somatic axiology goes beyond time management and restructures the deeper patterns that govern your choices. You start by fasting from the very agreements and distractions that make you a slave to clock time, reactive yeses, mindless consumption, urgency loops, and the comforts that keep you from acting on what you already know. You then redirect this liberated energy through fixation on a higher order of time and cause. Instead of staring at notifications, schedules, and other people's expectations, you fix your attention on the one who stands outside time, on the timeless presence of God woven through your breath and your body. You begin to notice how often your mind rushes into the future or retreats into the past, and you gently bring it back to the only place where causation lives. Now, through breathwork, you disrupt the physiological loop that keeps your body confusing urgency with importance and stillness with danger. Each intentional breath teaches your nervous system that you can feel pressure without collapsing, and you can be still without being lazy. Instead of letting adrenaline rule your calendar, you train your system to move from a slower, steadier flame of power in your solar plexus, the embodied signal that says, I choose, instead of, I must. Through prayer, you stop rehearsing victimhood and resignation. You bring to God the beliefs that have secretly ruled you. I never have enough time. I don't have a choice. If I slow down, I'll fall behind. If I say no, I'll lose everything. You expose these covenants with Belphegor and replace them with God's truth, that your time is a sacred trust, that you were not created to be a slave, and that obedience to divine law will always bear more fruit than obedience to the clock. Through vision craft, you map your commitment to the contract of time onto real life, seeing in concrete images what a sovereign relationship with time actually looks like. You envision days shaped by purpose instead of panic, weeks marked by meaningful completion instead of scattered attempts, years that bear the imprint of what you were called to create instead of what you were pressured to maintain. You stop fantasizing about a life where one day you'll be free, and you begin to see the specific structures and rhythms your divine ruler is called to implement now. Through sound healing, you stop letting the noise of the matrix set the tempo of your nervous system. You use rhythm, tone, and intentionally chosen music to help your body experience time as rhythm instead of threat. You let sound teach you that pauses, rests, and silence are part of the song, not failures to keep up. You allow your inner metronome to be reset from frantic ticking to sacred pacing so that your sense of timing begins to align with divine prompts instead of cultural pressure. And finally, through integration, you turn your new beliefs and identity into concrete decrees on your calendar and in your daily choices. You decide what you will no longer give your time to without prayer and consent, what meetings, obligations, entertainments, and false emergencies must be cleared from your kingdom schedule, and what you will now prioritize instead: deep work, rest, relationships, study, creation, and service. As you do this ritual and its daily practices, your external life slowly comes into order. Fewer last-minute crises, fewer burned-out nights, more moments where your actions feel like clean expressions of your true will. This internal integrity doesn't magically erase deadlines, responsibilities, or the realities of the material world, but it does change how you meet them and from where. It changes the energy you bring to your work, your relationships, and your own growth. That is where sustainable sovereignty is born. This is more honest and effective than the rubber chicken philosophies of just grind harder or just go with the flow. Effort without authorship is slavery. Drift without intention is decay. True power emerges when you act from alignment with divine law. Time, like money and desire, is a form of energy. When you scatter it across tasks that are out of alignment, you dilute your authority. When you hoard it in the name of self-care while avoiding your calling, you weaponize it against your own soul. Sloth, the counterfeit of rest, thrives in both extremes, compulsive overwork and chronic avoidance. True causation lives in coherence, in the alignment between what you believe, what you decree, and what you do in this moment. You cannot embody the principle of causation while seeing yourself as a victim of time. You cannot awaken your divine ruler while treating your schedule as something that happens to you. The very same attention that once fueled distraction and delay becomes the power that builds legacies if you reclaim it. Work smarter, not harder. You only live once, rise and grind, and just stay present. All sound compelling on the surface. So do their spiritual cousins. Let go and let God, what's meant to be will be, and the universe has perfect timing. But neither set of slogans produces sovereignty. The first trains you to worship efficiency and chance. The second trains you to spiritualize passivity. Both keep you from taking your rightful place on the throne of causation. They skip the crucial step of integration, denying the contract of time that says, I will author my days in partnership with the eternal. Without integration, all your talk of manifesting, trusting the process, or surrendering to the flow becomes just another form of spiritual tourism. Spiritual tourists buy planners, habit trackers, and color-coded calendars, but never sit in stillness long enough to ask what actually matters. They consume productivity content, quoting books and podcasts, while continuing to say yes to everything that drains them. They tell themselves God is in control as an excuse to avoid the uncomfortable decisions that would actually honor God's call on their life. They attend retreats and masterminds about time freedom, then go home and immediately re-enter the same cycles of distraction and overcommitment. They speak of embodied leadership, but treat their nervous system like a machine, pushing past all limits until it collapses. This is how proponents of hustle culture and spiritualized passivity alike defy the very laws they claim to uphold. They aren't outsmarting divine law. They're colliding with it and mistaking the fallout for fate. This denial of the contract of time cripples those who chase success or surrender while refusing the daily embodied choices that authorship requires. If you're reading this and feel a flicker of anger, shame, or resistance because you see yourself in these examples, don't turn away. That twinge is not condemnation, it's a summons. It's your sovereign self reminding you that you came here not to drift through a pre-written script, but to co-author creation. Guilt, when met with honest action instead of self-loathing, quickly transmutes into clarity, courage, and clean resolve. The real laws that govern causation and time will shape you whether you believe in them or not. You don't need to believe in gravity for a fall to break your bones, and you don't need to believe in the principle of causation for its violation to scatter your focus, sabotage your efforts, and leave your life feeling like a series of accidents. Belief helps you cooperate, but belief alone doesn't author your life. Law does. And without alignment with divine law, your attempts at time management, goal setting, or work-life balance are little more than illusions. This is how most modern people become tourists in their own lives, trapped in cycles of rush, collapse, regret, and distraction. That cycle leads straight into the breakdown loops of the dark feminine and the dark masculine, the very distortions that feed Belphegor. Both manifestations of the passive self are driven by the impulse to avoiding responsibility, avoiding discernment, avoiding the sacred discomfort of choosing. The seven-step ritual of the divine ruler uses somatic axiology to turn your awareness away from Belphegor's numbing cycle of sloth and false urgency. This is how you claim your divine right to sovereignty and independence, not by controlling everything, not by abandoning duty, but by honoring your sacred contract with time itself, treating your days as the canvas upon which Spirit paints through you. This starts with fasting, not just from food, but from the distractions, comforts, and counterfeit urgencies that have been quietly occupying your throne. Step 1. Fasting to starve out Belphegor. For the sovereign self, fasting is a 3-day audit of authority, removing everything that lets time rule you. Belphegor's sloth hides in later, maybe, and after I feel ready. This 72-hour fast trains the ruler to move by causation, clear cause, clean effect, no drift. Ancients fasted to decide and to act. Israel fasted before choosing leaders. Early Christians fasted before appointments and missions. Monastics paired fasting with ora et labora, prayer and work, so devotion became schedule, not sentiment. Roman discipline treated voluntary abstinence as proof that one's will could govern one's hours. The common thread, fasting reinstalled authorship over time. Science backs the utility of this practice. 72 hours without caloric spikes can initiate autophagy and help steady cortisol rhythms. Executive function and task salience often improve as dopamine resets from novelty seeking to sustain focus. In practice, fewer false urgencies, more follow-through. Your assignment is exact. 3 full days, water and electrolytes as needed. Unsweetened tea or black coffee only if necessary. Keep it minimal. No media grazing, no calendar tinkering to feel productive, no system overhauls, no tool, gadget, or app shopping, no performative planning sprints, no back-to-back calls to stay busy. Equally, no collapse, no sleeping through obligations, no ghosting, no vague rain checks. Keep commitments you've already made. Make none new. If you have genuine medical constraints, adapt the fast rather than abandoning the practice. This is a ritual of governance, not self-harm. This is a fast from the Matrix's prison of clocked time. You remove every crutch that lets the day carry you. No push notifications, no inbox refresh loops, no timeline surfing between tasks, no multitasking. Choose one block, one task, one finish. If a new idea arrives, park it on a single capture page and return to the task at hand. Your measure is completion, not commotion. Do what must be done and nothing more. Open loops. Close one per working block. Physical space. Clear one surface. Finances or admin. Reconcile one ledger segment. Team or family. Have one necessary conversation. No theatrics. Movement. Short walks. Normal bedtimes. Speak plainly. Avoid dramatizing delays or overpromising rebounds. If anger flares, convert it into a boundary or a decision. When life contracts, most people contract agency. They wait, stall, and hedge. When life expands, they expand indiscriminately, meetings, projects, promises, until their word means nothing. Both are sloth. The refusal to steward cause so effect becomes random. The sovereign does the opposite. In contraction, it sows through constraint, tight scopes, tight promises, tight execution. In expansion, it harvests and consolidates, ships, closes loops, prunes, and cashes the check of prior discipline. This fast is rehearsal for that law. You are aligning the contract of time to the principle of causation. Journal daily during this fast and without self-censorship. Ask your adventurous self to reveal what Asmodeus is feeding on. You do this by investigating the emotions driving any impulsive thoughts or actions that come up during this fast. Anger, who do I need to forgive, and who do I need to draw a boundary with? Pride, how am I protecting my image at the expense of my growth? Courage, what do I need to face? Again, don't worry about solutions. Just ask the questions and wait for the answers. You'll notice that anger sometimes requires pure grace. This is for people who you want to remain connected with and who require your forgiveness so you can rebuild trust. The truth question asks what healthy boundaries will protect you from being hurt again by this person. Sometimes the boundary is the complete denial of access to you. That's okay, but make sure you have forgiven them first. You will know your fast is working when later stops feeling like safety and starts sounding like a lie. Your calendar will look lighter because your scope is honest. Tasks will complete at the size you set, not the size your anxiety or perfectionism invented. You will feel less pulled to rearrange and more compelled to launch your project. These are signs that sovereignty is returning, cause chosen, effect delivered. Break the fast without drama, clean water, a small simple meal. Do not celebrate with a planning binge or punish with a workout gauntlet. Pick one decision you've postponed and make it. Pick one promise you've delayed and fulfill it. Time is a contract, not a suggestion. Diligence is how your divine ruler keeps it binding. Step 2, fixation to invoke Archangel Uriel. Fasting cleared the noise. Fixation fills the space with presence. This second step, fixation, fills the space with an ordered energy. By now, you know that sacred traditions describe this energy as a divine governing presence that ignites the courage and authority of your sovereign self. This is what I mean by invoking Archangel Uriel, the divine steward of God's diligence, which is the virtue that counters Belphegor's sin of sloth. You are not trying to solve your life in this moment. You are not trying to generate motivation or pressure yourself into action. Fixation allows your sovereign self to feel what it is like to be steady in the presence of responsibility, influence, and consequence. You can fix on a point in your body, or, if that feels like too much at first, on a simple point in the external world. A point in your body is best, because that is where your sovereign self lives, at the solar plexus, in the realm of your need for independence and self-direction. But you may begin anywhere it feels possible. As you do this, imagine your divine ruler standing beside you, and Archangel Uriel, steward of diligence and governor of your sovereign self, guarding the space you choose. Sloth dulls your agency. Diligence restores it. Uriel's presence is not something you must feel. It is a posture you agree to inhabit. Here is the practice. Sit or stand in a way that feels upright without strain. Let your shoulders fall back and down. Unclench your jaw. Let your abdomen soften. Allow your breath to stay natural. Choose one point. If you choose a point in your body, it might be the warmth or pressure at your solar plexus, the feeling of your spine stacking cleanly beneath your ribs, your hand resting on the center of your chest or upper abdomen. If you choose a point in the external world, it might be a small mark on the wall, at the corner of a book or frame, a single flame or source of light. Choose one. Do not shop for a better one. Fixation is about staying. If you wish, you can whisper a simple line as you begin. Uriel, stand with me as I return my attention to this one point. Help me stay. Let your awareness rest on that point, not the idea of it, the actual sensation in your body or the simple seeing of it in front of you. When your mind wanders, notice that it wandered and gently bring your attention back. That is the practice. You do not need to perform or force. Every return is an act of sovereignty. Every return is you choosing authorship again instead of slipping back into passivity. Hold it without story. If you notice thoughts like, I'm failing at this is pointless, I should be doing something productive, or nothing is happening, let them pass like weather. See them. Return. That is the whole ritual. In the beginning, fixation may feel strangely effortful or dull. That is normal. Your system has been trained to drift, to wait, postpone, fantasize, collapse, or hope that circumstances will move themselves. That is how Belphegor keeps you out of your own life. Fixation begins to reverse that pattern by teaching you to hold a single point without surrendering your will. Set a timer for 2 or 3 minutes the first time you practice. When that begins to feel more natural, extend it to 5 minutes. You can use fixation during fasting or any time you feel stalled, unmotivated, indecisive, or pulled toward avoidance. The sign that fixation is beginning to work is subtle, a small but genuine sense that you can remain where you are and direct yourself without pressure. Stillness begins to feel less like stagnation and more like a command center, a place you can hold, choose, and act from. When this happens, whether slowly or quickly, you are reclaiming your right to sovereignty from Belphegor and allowing your sovereign self to take its seat in the principle of causation, where your decisions become the first cause of your life rather than the last reaction. Step 3. Breathwork to awaken your sovereign self. Fasting cleared the noise. Fixation fills the space with presence. Breathwork reconnects your mind and body. You are not trying to force motivation or push yourself into productivity. You are teaching your nervous system a new tempo, steady, responsible, and self-directed. This is how your sovereign self becomes the pace setter instead of being hijacked by sloth or the outdated beliefs about independence. Start by taking a moment to notice the point you used in fixation. You do not have to stare at it or think about it. Just let yourself remember, I have a place to stand. Then let your attention include your breath. You will use 3 simple breathwork patterns here. 1. Square breath, masculine grounding, builds structure and steadiness and looks like this. Inhale through your nose for 4 seconds or 4 counts. Hold your breath at the top for 4 seconds or 4 counts. Exhale through your nose for 4 seconds or 4 counts. Hold your breath at the bottom for 4 seconds or 4 counts. Keep the count steady and unhurried. If 4 seconds or 4 counts feels easy, you may rise to 5 or 6 on each side, as long as it stays comfortable. If at any point you feel dizzy or strained, shorten the holds or return to simple in and out breathing without holds. Continue this pattern for about 2 to 3 minutes. Feel how the equal lengths and light pauses create a sense of order. Your breath moves like a square. In, hold, out, hold. With each round, you are telling your body, there is time, there is structure. I can act without rushing. As your secure, adventurous, and sovereign selves begin to align with rhythm, gender, and causation, a new kind of perception starts to wake up in you. I call this the owl awakening, the moment your authority stops being about control and becomes about clear seeing. The next pattern marks that seam. It connects your grounded sovereign self to the compassionate self that comes next. 2. Owl breath, masculine awakening, sharpens clear awareness without panic and looks like this. Take quick, light breaths through your nose only, in and out, for about 30 to 60 seconds. Keep the breaths moderate in depth, no gulping, no forcing, and let your shoulders stay relaxed and your jaw unclenched. Your breath moves like a quiet engine, quick, steady, alert. If you feel lightheaded, tingly, or strained, slow down, shorten the set, or stop and return to normal breathing. Owl breath is brief on purpose. It is not for pushing, it is for waking up clean focus at the center of your power. When you finish a round of owl breath, pause for a few normal breaths. Notice the feeling of brightness or clarity in your chest and face. Then move into the 3rd pattern to stabilize what has awakened. 3. Chalice breath, feminine activation. Opens receptive, focused energy and looks like this. Inhale through your nose for 4 seconds or 4 counts. Exhale through your nose for 4 seconds or 4 counts. Hold your breath at the bottom of the exhale for 4 seconds or 4 counts. Keep it smooth and fluid. Do not force the hold. If the post-exhale hold feels sharp or anxious, shorten it to 2 to 3 seconds, or skip the hold and return to simple in and out breathing. Stay with this pattern for 2 to 5 minutes. Let your upper abdomen rise and fall. Let the breath move into your ribs and back as if you were filling and emptying a cup at the center of your torso. If your mind wanders, notice that it wandered and gently return to the feeling of air moving in and out. You do not need to synchronize this with any special thought or image. The breath itself is the practice. Each square breath lays down a frame of diligence. Owl breath briefly sharpens your seeing at the seam between will and wisdom, Each chalice breath then fills that frame with calm readiness. Over time, these simple patterns train your heart and lungs to move together in coherence. Your system learns that direction and responsibility are not emergencies. They are postures you can return to. You may feel restless at first. You may catch yourself trying to rush the counts, stretch the holds to get more out of it, or drift back into shallow chest breathing. You may notice the urge to quit early and do something easier. That is normal. When you notice it, soften and begin the pattern again from wherever you are. Every time you return, you are strengthening your sovereign self. You can use this breath work during fasting, after fixation, or on its own whenever you feel stalled, unmotivated, avoidant, or trapped in overthinking instead of acting. If you practice it after fixation, you may find it helpful to briefly feel your fixation point at the start of each session, then let the breath and that point share your attention. The sign that it is working is simple. Your body feels a little heavier in a good way. Your thoughts line up into clearer next steps, and stillness feels slightly more like a command center than a dead stop. You are not trying to escape responsibility. You are teaching your body that it is safe to lead your life. With each round of square breath, each brief awakening of owl breath, and each gentle chalice that follows, you are awakening your sovereign self and letting it set the tempo by which you manage your time, energy, and authority. Step 4. Prayer to transfigure your sovereign self. Fasting cleared the noise and created space. Fixation filled that space with presence. Breath work consciously connected your mind and body. This fourth step prayer retrieves and retrains the beliefs and identities associated with your need for independence. Independence, not isolation or self-sufficiency, but an embodied sense of authorship, is the need that drives your sovereign self. Your passive self relies on strategies that either create a false sense of independence or meet the need at the expense of one of your other needs. Prayer reveals these old patterns clearly and replaces them with patterns rooted in presence, the principle of causation and authorship. You will achieve this through 2 rituals, one to retrieve the old patterns and another to retrain your new ones. The retrieval ritual is where you identify the exact independence model your nervous system is running and put it into plain language so it can be seen instead of obeyed. The retraining ritual is where you keep the old model acknowledged, then practice a new one using a 3-part script paired with breath, so the new model becomes your default through repetition. In Chapter 4, we discussed why positive affirmations fail. They try to paint a new statement over an old identity without ever acknowledging what your nervous system is actually defending. We don't just believe things about independence. We unconsciously live inside a cognitive metaphor for independence, and you can hear it in someone's speech. One of the most disempowering metaphors for independence is the belief that distance, permission, or perfect certainty equals independence. It turns independence into a condition you must protect, wait for, or earn before you can act. But independence is what meets the need for authorship, not the other way around. The metaphor we are recommending is stronger because it is more anti-fragile. Throne gives you a world of stewardship instead of passivity. Govern gives you a repeatable mode of action instead of delay. And self-directed names a stable identity rather than a temporary feeling of control. For example, if someone's metaphor for independence is self-sufficiency, they say things like, I can't rely on anyone. If I need help, I lose power. I have to do this myself. And their body produces the matching feelings, tension, guardedness, over-responsibility. If someone's metaphor for independence is permission, they say, I need to know it's okay first. I don't want to step out of line. I'll move once someone confirms it. And the feeling downstream is hesitation that blurs their will. If someone's metaphor for independence is certainty, they say, I need to know this will work before I act. I can't choose until I'm sure. What if I make the wrong move? And their nervous system turns uncertainty into paralysis. If someone's metaphor for independence is distance, they say, I just need everyone to leave me alone. I can do this better on my own. I don't want anyone telling me what to do. And their body treats closeness or interdependence like a threat to authorship. The point is simple. These spoken phrases aren't the root. They're the surface language produced by the deeper metaphor. Beliefs and feelings form underneath that metaphor automatically, and behavior follows. That is what makes the healthier metaphor more anti-fragile than the weaker ones. Permission fails when no one comes to authorize you. Certainty fails when action must precede proof. Distance fails when life still requires relationship. Control fails when outcomes remain partly outside your hands. But thrown to govern to self-directed can metabolize uncertainty without losing its meaning because it gives you an anti-fragile world, a repeatable behavior, and a stable identity all at once. Listen for the most common models people have of independence, which include: independence comes from self-sufficiency. Independence comes from permission. Independence comes from certainty. Independence comes from control. Independence comes from distance. Independence comes from rebellion. Independence comes from perfection. Independence comes from preparedness. Independence comes from not needing anyone. Independence comes from waiting for the right moment. Do not analyze these yet. Simply notice which one your body defaults to. If one phrase makes your chest tighten, circle it. If two apply, circle both. This is the old model we will retrieve in the first ritual and retrain in the second. If you try to speak or embrace a new model while the old independence model is still in place, the two collide inside your body and create a feeling of unease or impostorship. One part of you says, "This is who I am now." Another part says, "No, this is how we stay alive." The result is an inner fight you can only sustain by sheer willpower, and willpower always runs out. Identity scripts work because they don't argue with the old model. They name it, honor what it was trying to do, and then retrain it into a better one. Prayer in this step follows that same pattern. Retrieval ritual. Sit in stillness. Let your awareness rest on the point you used for fixation. Let a few rounds of circle breath soften your edges. Then bring to mind a situation where you feel stalled, hesitant, or dependent on circumstances, where your body tightens, slumps, or freezes, and you feel like you have no real choice but to react in a familiar way. As you hold that kind of moment in awareness, ask one question, not to your thinking mind, but to the part of your body that freezes, procrastinates, or quietly collapses. What did I learn I had to do in order to stay safe in moments like this? Do not search for an answer. Let your body tell the truth your mind has been rationalizing. Then ask a second question. What do I believe will happen if I don't do that? This is where the deeper script usually shows itself. Now ask one more and keep it simple. What model of independence is my body living inside right now? Self-sufficiency, permission, certainty, control, distance, rebellion, perfection, preparedness, not needing anyone, or waiting. Do not try to get it right. Name the one that feels true in your nervous system. The first answer often sounds noble or reasonable. The second reveals the threat your nervous system still believes it is avoiding. Listen for short confessions. They may sound like, "If I act first, I'll be wrong. If I choose, I'll be judged. If I move without permission, I'll lose love. If I need help, I'll lose power. If I take the lead, I'll be blamed." These are somatic memories, your nervous system's childhood logic. They are not your higher self speaking. They're survival scripts that once helped you get through punishment, control, or overwhelming pressure. Speak the confessions aloud or write them down. Keep them simple. One sentence each. Do not edit, interpret, or argue with them. Then, on a new line, write the model plainly. Independence comes from, followed by a clear and brief description of your old model. That is, self-sufficiency, permission, certainty, distance, etc. This is not philosophy. This is the operating definition your nervous system has been obeying. If your line sounds like distance or delay, once I know enough, once no one can affect me, once I don't need anyone, notice the spell. You are treating isolation, permission, or certainty as independence. Your sovereign self is telling the truth about how it has been trying to protect your authorship. Then ask a third question. What model of independence is my body being asked to surrender, and where does it live? Place your attention there. Breathe gently. Let the old pattern fully surface. This is the excavation, bringing the hidden foundation of the passive self into the light. As you do this, expect emotion to rise. Your old identity will fight for its life. It may show up as grief for the part of you that has lived this way for so long, shame about staying small, guilt for the years you lost to the old pattern, or resentment toward yourself or others for how it all began. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is simply the alarm. These 4 guard dog emotions are the gremlins in your nervous system, like an autoimmune response that attacks the body it is meant to protect. You do not have to silence fear. You only have to notice that they are defending a pattern that no longer serves your need for independence. Retraining ritual. Once the confession is seen, spoken, or written, the space must be filled. Not with fantasy, not with dramatic affirmations, but with a new independence pattern anchored in breath, truth, and identity. Here's the pivot. We are not only changing what you say about independence, we are retraining the model of independence your nervous system has been living inside. This is where prayer becomes an identity script. Use this 3-part structure. First, acknowledge your old model for independence with a statement like this. I once lived as if independence, followed by a statement acknowledging your old model for independence. Second, follow this acknowledgement with a declaration of your new model for independence, with a statement like this. Now I define independence as, followed by a clear statement of your new model for independence. Finally, anchor your new truth to an identity, action, and benefit. So today I choose to, followed by a statement of a simple action you'll take every day to reinforce the new model. Example. I once lived as if independence came from certainty, distance, and not needing anyone, as if waiting kept me safe. Now I define independence as self-directed authorship rooted in the principle of causation. Like a throne that must be governed, my life changes when I act as a cause through honest choices, clean responsibility, and aligned action. So today, I choose one clear act of self-government through this divine ritual to awaken my divine ruler. Notice that this does not erase the old belief. It names it, honors the role it played, and then assigns a higher truth and a new behavior. You are not pretending you never thought this way. You are continuing the story with a different main character, your sovereign self under the care of your divine ruler. Now speak your new script aloud for 3 slow breaths. Inhale as you remember the new truth. Exhale as you release the old reflex. Let your breath carry the new script into your body. This is how you retrain your nervous system, not through pressure, but through pattern presence. Each time you repeat a script like this, you give your system a new reference point. Over time, your default mode network and your body's emotional reflexes begin to defend the new identity instead of the old one. End by placing your awareness on your fixation point again. Feel your body's weight. Let the square breath pattern close your prayer with structure and steadiness. This is how your sovereign self begins to transfigure, by clearing the old independent strategy through honest retrieval and excavation, and by installing a new one through intentional, breath-carried identity. This is how you transfigure your passive self into your divine ruler. Step 5. Visioncraft to align your divine ruler. Fasting cleared the noise. Fixation filled the space with presence. Breathwork reconnected your mind and body. Prayer retrieved and retrained the beliefs tied to your need for independence. Visioncraft gives your sovereign self an identity that aligns with the divine principle of causation. You are not forcing outcomes or trying to control the future. You are letting your imagination rehearse what it feels like to live as someone who moves with causation, initiating when life contracts and refining when life expands, so your independence comes from authorship, not avoidance. Visioncraft is spiritual play. It is not about realism. It is about giving your nervous system a vivid picture of your divine ruler in motion, steady, dignified, proactive, and wise. The form doesn't matter. Leader, captain, sovereign, strategist, architect, or a future you who decides rather than drifts. The function does. Your divine ruler moves with diligence instead of sloth. It is the cause amidst a world of effects. Begin as you have learned. Find a comfortable position. Feel your fixation point, the warmth at your solar plexus, the length of your spine, or your hand resting on your upper abdomen. Take a minute or two of circle breath until you feel more centered. Now let the image of your divine ruler appear. It may arrive quietly at first, in a stance, a silhouette, a symbol, or it may appear fully formed, clothing, environment, throne, command center, or terrain. Trust what comes. This is your sovereign self exploring the identity of your divine ruler. Once the figure appears, notice how they stand, how they breathe, how they occupy space. Let yourself feel, even slightly, what it is like to be inside that authority. Now bring in the principle of causation through two simple scenes. Scene 1, when life contracts, take action. Imagine a moment where life tightens, resources thinning, opportunities slowing, or energy drawing inward. This can be symbolic or literal, a dimly lit hallway narrowing, a quiet winter field, a room with doors closing, a landscape at dusk where movement slows, a season where options feel few and momentum is low. Everything in the scene is contracting. Notice what your divine ruler does. They do not hesitate. They do not wait for conditions to improve. They initiate with clarity. You might see yourself taking a single decisive step, lighting a torch or raising a banner, speaking a command or naming a direction, choosing one pathway instead of analyzing several, beginning something small but intentional. Let the scene unfold. Feel how initiation is not pressure. It is authorship. When life contracts, I start the cause. Where do you feel that spark in your body? Let your breath match the ruler's breath. Scene 2. When life expands, refine action. Now imagine a moment where life opens, momentum rising, possibilities multiplying, opportunities rushing in faster than you can respond. This could look like a sunrise brightening a whole valley, a bustling marketplace filling with sound, a river swelling after rain, a room where many voices call for your attention, a season of abundance, acceleration, or rapid growth. Everything in the scene is expanding. Notice what your divine ruler does. They do not scramble. They do not say yes to everything. They refine what they're already doing. Refining your action means identifying the 20% of your actions that create 80% of the outcomes, the few actions, choices, or responsibilities that actually matter. When life gets big, the divine ruler becomes precise. Here are 4 clear examples so your body understands the pattern. Work. Instead of trying to complete 10 projects, you identify the 2 that create most of your progress. Relationships. Instead of attending every request or conversation, you focus on the few exchanges that deepen real connection. Time. Instead of filling your schedule, you choose the 1 or 2 actions that shift the entire week. Energy. Instead of pouring effort everywhere, you invest in the small practices that have the biggest stabilizing effect. I discuss the 80-20 rule, the law of leverage, and the other 2 laws of manifestation in my book, 7-Figure Power Habits. In your vision, you might see yourself slowing your breath as the world speeds up, sorting abundance into what is essential and what is noise, choosing the most leveraged action instead of the most dramatic, naming the priority with a steady voice, directing the flow of momentum rather than being swept up in it. Let the scene unfold. Feel how refining is not restriction, it is wisdom. When life expands, I refine the effect. Where do you feel that grounding? Let your breath match the ruler's breath. If resistance appears, doubt, old passivity, guilt for taking charge, fear of choosing wrong, or the voice that says, I don't know what to do not fight it. Give it a simple shape if you like, a shadowed advisor, an old script, a hesitant figure in the background. Acknowledge it. Then return to the divine ruler and how they keep moving with causation instead of passivity. Stay with these two scenes, life contracting and life expanding, for 5 to 10 minutes. You may see many landscapes and symbols over time. Good. You are not creating one identity. You are learning a pattern. When life contracts, I initiate the cause. When life expands, I refine the effect. Close your vision craft by letting the image of your divine ruler step into you and you into them. Imagine sharing a spine, a breath, a pulse. You might quietly say, I carry this cause, and I refine its effect. My sovereignty moves with me. Then open your eyes, feel your fixation point once more, and notice even the smallest shift, more authority in your posture, more clarity in your thoughts, more steadiness in your breath. You do not have to believe every part of the vision. Your task is to breathe and rehearse who you are becoming. Over time, your sovereign self will recognize your divine ruler not as fantasy, but as a familiar role it can inhabit whether life contracts or expands. This is vision craft, aligning your inner imagery with the principle of causation so your need for independence is met from the inside out. Step 6. Sound healing to quicken your divine ruler. Fixation filled the space with presence. Breathwork reconnected your mind and body. Prayer retrieved and retrained the beliefs tied to your need for independence. Visioncraft gave your sovereign self an identity aligned with the principle of causation. Sound healing quickens that identity within your body. This is how you tune your physical instrument so it can actually hold the signal of your divine ruler. You are not trying to create a motivational high here. You are teaching your nervous system what steady, directed power feels like, so your new identity has a stable home in your solar plexus. Sound is one of our most ancient and intuitive healing tools. It bypasses cognition and drops directly into your tissues, breath, and bones. When paired with simple, purposeful movement, sound becomes a tuning fork that recalibrates your entire system. For the sovereign self, sound must be focused, driving, and contained. This is not the moment for collapse into passivity or for impulsive overdrive. This is the moment for diligence in its true sense, will aimed cleanly, for feeling potent without being frantic, for letting your body know you are safe enough to lead. Begin with mid-low frequency toning. Choose a vowel sound like RAM, the solar plexus bija, or a firm RAH. Let the tone originate in your upper abdomen rather than your throat. Sit or stand tall, relax your jaw, and inhale gently through your nose. On the exhale, sustain RAM or RA for 5 to 10 seconds. Feel the vibration gathering in your solar plexus, ribs, and spine. You are not trying to sound pretty. You are trying to sound clear. Let the tone be strong, imperfect, and full. After several rounds of toning, shift into gentle humming with your lips closed. Let the resonance fill your chest, sternum, and back, then sink your awareness back down into your solar plexus as you hum. Keep your breath slow and steady. This embodied vibration tells your nervous system you are safe to act. Vocal resonance engages the vagus nerve, humming eases amygdala reactivity, and rhythmic sound nudges your system toward regulated alertness instead of apathy or adrenaline spikes. In simple terms, your body hears these sounds as a signal that authority does not have to be an emergency. To deepen the effect, pair your sound with slow, deliberate movement. Think in terms of grounded, symmetrical motions rather than sloppy or showy ones. Examples: Power stances. Stand with feet hip-width apart, knees soft, and gently press your feet into the floor as you tone or hum, feeling the line from soles to solar plexus. Solar presses. Stand and bring your hands together in front of your sternum and press palm to palm on the exhale with sound, easing the pressure on the inhale. Step and plant. Take a slow step forward on the exhale with sound, plant your foot, feel your weight arrive, then inhale as you prepare the next step. These patterns wake up the muscles and fascia around your core. They send proprioceptive signals through your torso that say, we can move, we can decide, we are supported. You're not just giving your body an idea of sovereignty, you're giving it a felt experience of taking up directional space without tipping into domination or drift. If you're musically inclined, the sovereign self resonates beautifully with the Phrygian mode. Phrygian has an edge and a sense of pressure, intense, focused, and slightly dangerous, but when held with diligence, it becomes disciplined fire. It carries the emotional color of sober power, drive with discernment. Here are some examples of songs in the Phrygian mode. Wherever I May Roam, Metallica, Symphony of Destruction, Megadeth, White Rabbit, Jefferson Airplane, Misirlou, Dick Dale, Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun, Pink Floyd, Domination, Pantera, Sultans of Swing, Intro Riff, Dire Straits, Hava Nagila, Traditional, Spanish Caravan, The Doors, The End, The Doors. Create a playlist of these songs and others in the Phrygian mode. Listen to these when you need to remember that you can cut through fog and move. You might also play one or two tracks quietly while you tone Ram or Ra. Hum along to a simple riff after your identity script and vision craft. Put a single song on repeat while you hold a power stance, solar presses, or step and plant. Even a simple Phrygian triad or riff can stabilize your frequency and reinforce a somatic sense of clean authority. When you complete your sound healing session, sit back or lie down with one hand over your solar plexus and rest for 1 to 2 minutes. Feel the weight of your torso supported. Let your breath return to its natural pace. Let the vibration settle. Notice how your body feels warmer, clearer, and more willing to move toward what matters instead of waiting for perfect conditions. This is how your sovereign self becomes a trustworthy ruler for your other selves. Regulating your core sense of power restores balance across your inner ecosystem. Sound can feel good, and that's welcome, but feeling good is not the only aim. The goal is to bring the sovereign self and divine ruler online in the context of real experience. Many seekers confuse intensity with transformation. Charge without structure is just another storm. The sovereign self doesn't chase spikes. It holds tone. The more anchored your authority, the less hijackable your state. This is the pivot from stimulation to embodiment, from internal surge to external congruence. In the next and final step, you'll complete the circuit through embodied action. For now, let sound do what it has always done for the human soul. Remind your body that it is safe to take the lead and give your divine ruler a rhythm of causation it can live in without burning you out or putting your life on hold. Step 7. Integration to honor your contract with time. Fasting cleared the noise. Fixation filled the space with presence. Breathwork reconnected your mind and body. Prayer retrieved and retrained the beliefs tied to your need for independence. Visioncraft gave your sovereign self an identity aligned with the principle of causation. Sound healing quickened that identity within your body. Integration turns your new identity into actions that honor your contract with time and create real sovereignty in your life. Everything you have done in this ritual so far has prepared you for this step. Integration is not about getting everything done or building the perfect system. It is about honoring your contract with time, the sacred agreement to spend your hours, attention, and decisions in ways that make your authorship real. Time is not your master and not your enemy. Time is the field where cause becomes effect. It is where your sovereignty becomes visible. Integration is not about controlling outcomes. It is about forming habits that keep your divine ruler active. This is the piece most productivity and spiritual teachings miss. They tell you to dream bigger, take massive action, or align your vibration, but they rarely teach you how to discipline your hours. Thoughts and feelings generate signal. Action moves mass. Action tells the world and your nervous system whose time this is. Sloth in this frame is not laziness. Sloth is detached authority, the tendency to drift, delay, overschedule, or underdecide until time decides for you. Passivity is sloth in motion, reacting instead of initiating, rearranging instead of finishing, planning instead of committing. Before this ritual, your passive self tried to meet your need for independence by avoiding responsibility, postponing decisions, saying yes to everything so nothing was truly chosen, hiding behind busyness, or waiting for the right moment. Those actions were not failures, they were survival. They were your nervous system's way of avoiding blame, conflict, and overwhelm. But your sovereign self does not drift to survive. It decides to lead. It does not surrender time to conditions. It allocates time to causes. Integration means that every small action you take with your hours is chosen, not accidental, designed, not inherited, grounded in diligence instead of hijacked by sloth. In other words, you stop being dragged through the day and start moving the day. This is not about achieving giant goals. When you focus only on big goals, you create pressure, perfectionism, and long stretches of "I'm behind." Goals live in the external world, the world of effects. They depend on markets, other people, timing, and circumstance. Habits live in the internal world, the world of causes. They shape identity. They retrain your nervous system. They make progress inevitable. When you build habits that support your sense of sovereignty over time, results accumulate almost in spite of you. Even when a goal shifts, delays, or dies, your habits keep generating momentum, completion, and self-respect. This is the structural side of integration, tiny daily acts of authorship that quietly change the trajectory of your life. The deeper practice here is what you might call sovereign tempo, the habit of enjoying the process of directing time itself, instead of worshiping any particular outcome inside it. When you fall in love with the process of choosing causes and completing effects, rather than clinging to one big finish line, you win even when plans change. The habits remain. They keep compounding. They keep feeding your independence. Over time, this makes meaningful outcomes practically inevitable, even if they arrive by different paths than you imagined. Your actions must be small enough to finish today, clear enough to know when they are done, honest enough to matter, repeatable enough to become habits. Think in 5 domains when defining your actions. Time block, 1 block of protected single task focus each day. 15 to 60 minutes where you do one thing from start to finish with all notifications off. Scope, 1 act of right-sizing. Choose a task and deliberately make it smaller and finishable instead of someday big. Completion, close 1 open loop, send the email, pay the bill, sign the form, schedule the appointment, ship the draft. Order 5 minutes of temporal housekeeping, review tomorrow, cancel 1 non-essential obligation, move 1 thing from maybe to a clear yes or no. Renewal, 1 deliberate off-duty pocket, a short walk without your phone, a tech-free meal, or 10 minutes where you are unreachable on purpose. Choose 1 habit from 1 domain to begin. Do not try to fix your whole calendar at once. Do not build a perfect system. Just pick 1 action and keep your rhythm. Remember, a habit only becomes part of your identity when it is paired with a state. Before each habit, give your nervous system a familiar sovereign signal. Find your fixation point at the solar plexus, the warmth in your upper abdomen, the feeling of your spine stacking beneath your ribs or your hand resting there. Take 1 or 2 rounds of square breath to bring structure and calm pressure back into your body. Take 1 or 2 rounds of chalice breath to invite receptive clarity. Recall your vision of the divine ruler, even for 1 second, the way they stand, the way they decide, the way they move when life contracts or expands. Then do your small action. When you are finished, take 3 slow circle breaths. This sequence says to your nervous system, this action belongs to my sovereign self. This action creates authorship. This action honors my contract with time. As your new habits take root, your old identity will push back, not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are doing something new. Resistance may appear in 4 familiar emotions. Shame, you should have done this years ago, it's too late. Guilt, you don't deserve this much autonomy, other people need you more. Grief, mourning the time you feel you wasted or the paths you didn't take. Resentment toward yourself, your past, or others who consumed your time or trained you to wait. Layered into sloth and passivity, resistance will also appear as urges, the sudden pull to check one thing instead of starting, to overplan instead of committing, to add 3 more tasks instead of completing one, to abandon a block halfway, and tell yourself you'll start fresh tomorrow. These emotions and urges create a false alarm that summons anxiety, numbness, or distraction, like an autoimmune response attacking the very sovereignty you are rebuilding. You are not forming these habits to become a machine or to bully yourself. You are doing this to stop the unnecessary alarms around responsibility and time. When these emotions or urges arise, do not override them and do not obey them. Acknowledge them. If the charge feels strong, take 3 to 5 gentle rounds of circle breath, in through the nose for 5 counts, out through the nose for 5 counts, imagining the tension loosening with each exhale and draining out through your ribs and down your legs. Then return to your small action or choose the smallest next truthful step. Each time you do, you cast a vote for the sovereign self who can lead without whipping and move without drama. If an old identity script surfaces, like, if I can't do it perfectly, I shouldn't start. If I choose one path, I lose all the others. If I say no, I'll be left behind. If I slow down to focus, everything will fall apart. Treat that as a gift. Capture it later in your journal and walk it through your retraining ritual. I once believed, now I know. So today, I choose. In this way, your daily actions continue to reveal and re-script the deeper patterns that once drove your passivity and sloth. Time stops being the judge of your worth and becomes the servant of your calling. Use 1 or 2 of these questions each day. Did I move my day by design or by drift? Where did I choose a cause instead of waiting for a condition? Where did I finish something, even small, instead of rearranging it? What emotion or urge tried to pull me back into my old script today? What tiny choice supported my identity as the divine ruler? These reflections turn experience into wisdom. They expose your outdated time scripts, overcommitting, underdeciding, passive waiting, so you can replace them with new beliefs, identities, actions, habits, and results. Over time, your internal sense of sovereignty will begin to show up in your external world as cleaner calendars, clearer boundaries, projects that actually complete, and a life that reflects what you chose instead of what just happened. And this is the ritual of somatic axiology applied to time, valuing your hours as a sacred resource instead of a problem to manage or a blur to endure. This is spiritual transfiguration at the level of decision and duration. This is how you activate and empower your divine ruler, centered in clarity, crowned in causation, the rightful ruler of its own kingdom.
End of Chapter 7 of Awaken Your Shadow by Seth Cherapak.